Hi, and thank you for joining me. Let's learn about Romania through the eyes of foreigners. Let's see what they have to say about the country we love, because I believe we can all learn something from each other. Happy viewing. Hi everybody, I'd like to introduce to you Odessa Toma, who is from the United States. Odessa?
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about yourself.
I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana originally. Moved here 3 years ago in January with my husband, who is Romanian. We have 3 children, ages 9, 7, and 4.5. You see, we came here to help my mother-in-law. Her health isn't very well, and 2, we wanted our children to know the other part of their heritage and where they come from, and so that they could see that what life is like in another country, and not everything is handed to you like it is in the United States, where it's sort of a instant gratification. Whatever you want, you can have it, you know. We wanted to show them you have to work, and that was one thing I did notice about the other Romanians that we knew in the United States. They would come and they started businesses and they did well. They knew how to make the most of their money and build something from the ground up, and so I really wanted to instill that in my children and have them know where they come from and learn another language and meet the rest of their family and just kind of be well-rounded individuals when they grow up. So, and you know, we've talked about whether or not we want to go back to the United States, and I really don't want to. I like it here.
Really?
Yes, it's very quiet and it's peaceful, especially here in Tulsa. It's a city, but it's still a small city, and there's still more of a sense of community here, and it's very quiet. I don't have to worry about drugs or, you know, if school shootings or things like that go on in the United States that seem to be so in the news all the time back there. And my oldest 2 walk to school by themselves, and they walk home by themselves, and I don't worry about it. You know, I don't worry about them going outside and, you know, playing around the block, and, you know, whether there's some crazy freak who's going to give them candy that's got something in it or, you know, abduct them. It's very safe, and life moves a lot slower here. It's peaceful. It's just not as crazy. You know, there's things about the United States that I miss, obviously. My family, my friends, Taco Bell, steaks. I would kill for a steak and cheesecake. I can't find that here. So, you know, little things like that I miss, but in the huge sweep of things, they're not that important. Family's more important, and very important here, the family life, and, you know, husbands and wives staying together and raising the children. And I don't think the divorce rate is as high here as it is in the United States. I could be mistaken, but just from what I've seen here, it's very low, and I like that. I like that my kids get to see moms and dads staying together, and they have no clue what divorce is. And we've been married. It'll be 8 years in May.
Wow. So you were in the States for what, 4 years or 5 years before you came to Romania with him?
He had been in the States a little bit longer than that, but yeah, we were married about 4 or 5 years before we came here. But he'd been there about a total of 10. And he's kind of lived all over. He's worked in Turkey, he's been in Italy, he's been in Canada, and in the United States. So
he's in Italy now, right?
Yes, he's working in Italy now, for the simple fact that there's not a whole lot of work here.
Were any of the kids born in the States?
All 3 of them were born in the United States.
Interesting.
So yeah, they're dual citizens, all of them. So that was a bit of a circus act, trying to get the act to transgress and bureaucracy. So it works out well for them.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
When they get older, it'll be very easy for them to go and do whatever they want in the world. So they kind of got a leg up above everybody else, I think.
What did Marius do in the States? What did you do in the States?
I did a little bit of everything. I was basically like an office manager, worked as a legal secretary as well. Mainly I'm very good at organizing records. Marius did plasterwork. He's stucco. Of course, you know, being from Baton Rouge, LSU, go Tigers, and they built a new habitat for Mike the Tiger, the mascot at LSU, and it's this huge, got pool and all kind of stuff, and he did the stucco on that. Several new buildings on the campus for the various colleges, he did the stucco on those. When Katrina came through and wrecked New Orleans and the lower part of Mississippi, and he went into New Orleans, redid some buildings there, drywall and stucco, and then the old state capitol in Jackson, Mississippi had gotten severely damaged, and he did the stucco on that. A lot of the cornices and the rosettes, some of the originals that were still left intact, he took those, reproduced them by hand. So yeah. I'm kind of proud of him.
No, I know. I've seen some of your photos on Facebook, but tell the audience a bit more about, because this is not your regular stucco work. This is not just throwing plaster on the wall and sandpapering it. This is different. So
yes, it's artistic in a sense, and of course he's my husband and I love him, so I'm gonna boast. And he's very much a perfectionist, and I'm talking the crown moldings with the dental work and the magnolias and fleur-de-lis, and he just took the original, what was left, and he kind of, I don't know exactly how he did it, but he made a mold and carved it all out, and so he could mass produce them in a fairly quick amount of time. When he does something, it's going to last for at least 50 years, and you'll be happy with it. And we've tried to kind of do that here, but nobody wants to pay for what it's worth, so it's like, whatever. But he's worked all over New Jersey, New York, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Louisiana doing stucco work, and he had built up quite a reputation back home. The large architects and everything, builders, they knew him and liked him. So
if he had a good reputation, a good job, it must have been tough for him to transfer over, to come to Romania and to try to make a living here, especially at Romanian prices, Romanian salaries and wages.
Yes, it was, and he found a couple of odd jobs here around town. There's an old building in downtown. It's the MGM now, and they were redoing the inside, and he did some of the plaster work in there. And the pay was okay. It wasn't as good as it could have been, what we were used to in the United States. But of course, it wasn't a long-term thing, and it was just kind of hit and miss for about a year. And he finally got this job working in Italy, and he's doing metal work now in the shipyards, which is what he was trained for here. He knows how to weld. He's a locksmith. Pretty much do anything. But we're hoping that eventually, something will open up where he can kind of start doing that again, because he's very good at it and he loves doing it. It's just kind of a wait and see. You kind of play the cards that life deals you. So
he's gone to Italy, right? How long does he stay there?
In Italy?
Yeah. He's
there. They come home in August for 2 weeks because evidently the whole country of Italy goes on vacation for a month.
Yeah.
Everything shuts down. So he comes home for about 2 weeks in Italy, and then again at Christmas. And he's here from Christmas till just after New Year. And then he goes back.
So you only see him twice a year?
Well, we do get to, when I can find, decent flight prices, we'll fly him in for, a weekend or a week if, everything's okay, budget-wise. Or, when the kids have vacation, I'll fly over for a weekend or a week, So, and the great thing about living, in the 21st century is we have all this great technology. So we have internet and we, chat online. So the kids still get to see and talk to their dad. Maybe it's not, in person, but it's still there. It's still something. So, and they know he's not that far away. It works. It's hard, but you do what you got to do.
So what are your long-term plans? Once the kids grow up, say, or once they're at an age where they can start to think for themselves and say, hey, Mom, Dad, why don't we go back to the States? Or what are we still doing in Romania? Or what do you think is going to happen?
We've talked about that, and when the kids get older, if they want to go back to the States, they can. I have family there. My parents are still there. My brother and his wife, cousins, and my family's very close-knit and very supportive of each other, and my parents have actually been here twice to visit. So if the kids want to go back, they can. We've already picked up and moved once to start all over. I don't really feel like starting all over again, and like I said, I like it here. I'm hoping that maybe in the next 5 to 10 years we can buy us a little place out in Ajigal or somewhere, and I can have some chickens and grow vegetables and wear overalls, and just, that's me, just nice and quiet and not too much fuss.
Tell me, how do you find Romania to be?
In which sense?
In all senses.
In all senses. Like I said, it's very quiet. It's peaceful here. I like it. It's nice, quiet life. Not so rushed and hurried, and it's easy. There's cultural differences, I think, you know, but that's to be anywhere. It's not. I haven't traveled all over the place, and I think people are generally the same everywhere. It's just the cultural nuances that separate everyone. For instance, the thing that I think I noticed when we first got here, nobody smiles when you pass them on the street, you know, like from the South. You know, we're polite and, you know, smile and nod at somebody when we pass them walking. Well, I did that here, and when we first got here, and me and Marius are walking to Piazza Noah, and, you know, we pass these older people, and I smile and nod, and I kept noticing that the people were looking at me funny, especially the men. And I told him, I was like, baby, what's wrong? Don't people smile at each other here? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I smile at people when I pass them on the street, and they're looking at me crazy. He was like, well, I was like that man we just passed, I smile. He's like, well, how are you smiling at him? You know, I was like, you know, he's like, oh, baby. I was like, what? He was like, here, when a woman smiles at a man, she's basically kind of telling him she's available. I was like, oh, crap. I quit smiling at people. I was like, just kept my eyes where I was going, and that was it. No more. And then, too, like, we go to the supermarket at Penny, you know, and it's small, and it's not like back home where you got the super Walmart, and you've got all this space. You can fit 2 and 3 buggies down the aisle, you know, abreast. And, so we're standing in line, and it's, you know, you're sandwiched in, you know, and I kept feeling a bump. Okay. Or, you know, they're standing right on top of you. Like, I could feel like the breath on the back of my neck, and it's like, baby, don't these people know what personal space is? You know, this is my space, that's your space, and the two shall never intertwine. And he was like, well, you know, it kind of goes back from when it was communist, and everybody had to get up early and go stand in line for the bread and the meat, and, you know, and they'd stand close and nobody could skip. It's like, well, communism died 20 years ago. You know, he's like, it's a learning process. All right, fine, whatever. You know, having to deal with the paperwork, getting the acte transgris for, you know, my immigration stuff and for the kids, and the blatant corruption. It was just, I know corruption exists everywhere. It's not just here in Romania. It exists everywhere. But here it's just a little bit more out in the open.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a catch-22. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing, you know, because when you need to get something and you need to get it in a hurry, hey, here's 200 kilos of fish, you know? All right, here you go. Take it and go. But then, you know, so it works out good, but when you've got the politicians kind of doing the same thing, it hurts the people. So
how does this compare to Louisiana, for example? Where I hear it's a bit murky in the waters over there.
Oh, boy.
Is it really not as bad as over there?
Crooked politicians, they're born in Louisiana. Well, in Louisiana it's a bit different because we still go by the Napoleonic Code. I mean, the laws that were written when Napoleon still had possession of Louisiana, those laws are still in power over there. And nothing's really changed. And it's a good old boy system back home. It's who you know, who you're related to, or who you're hunting buddies with. It's not so out in the open as it is here. I think that was one of the things that just blew my mind, was just, you know, everybody knows you can do it. You know who's corrupt, who's not corrupt. You know what it'll cost you under the table to get this done and that done, and it makes for some interesting stories.
Yes, it does.
So
what other cultural differences have you noticed?
Well, obviously I'm very animated when I talk, and I noticed with me and Marius, you know, when he comes in, or we try to have at least one date night, you know, we just go, if it's just for coffee, just 30-45 minutes, you know, we make sure the kids are in bed and they're asleep, and, you know, lock the door, and we just go have a coffee 5 minutes down the road. It's like the whole country is playing poker. You know, there's no expression on their face when they're talking, you know, that's it. And of course me, I'm like, you know, hands everywhere, and nobody's, you know, they're kind of looking at me funny, and I'm like, whatever, you know, I'm just, there's no animation, and it's, like I said, it's like a whole country of poker players. Nobody wants to show you their cards. You know, I can't let you know what I'm thinking. And was another thing in the summer, deodorant's not a very big thing here, especially with the older crowd. And you know, you go in the store and it's small and it's packed and it's cramped and they get in line right behind you and you're going, whoa, my God. You don't want to make a face or anything, but and as soon as I get back outside, I'm like, and I've asked Maurice, I was like, what is it? Why don't they use deodorant? He's like, because they think it'll mess up their clothes. I'm like, are you kidding me? They have a washing machine, right? He's like, yes. I was like, well, he's like, baby, I don't know what to tell you. I'm like,
I don't have an explanation for it either.
It's boggles the mind.
Yeah, there's an expression that I hear from some of the people who are funnier than me. They say these folks sunt certați cu apa, means they've argued with the water. That's somebody seem to be permanently arguing with water,
and they've lost. Oh wow! Oh, in the littering, of course, people litter back home too. I can't say that's just here in Romania because that just sounds wrong, and that's not what I'm trying to say. But people just throw their trash on the ground, and there's a trash can right there. You know, the city puts up these little trash cans, and you know, I had to break Marius at doing that when we first got here. You know, we'd have to walk because before we bought the car, and you know, we'd get a little coffee out of the little machines, and he'd finish his and he'd drop it on the ground. What are you doing? You know, he's like, what? I'm like, there's a trash can. He's like, where? I was like, well, it's probably up a little ways. Just hold on to it. He's like, what? I was like, baby, you sitting there complaining about how this, you know, it's so ugly here and blah, blah, blah. Well, you're not helping the situation if you throw the trash on the ground. And he's like, you have a point. All right then, just carry your cup till we get to the trash can, please. And the same thing with the kids. You know, they give them the little corns and latte at school, and so we're coming out and they want to eat their corn on the walk home, and they drop the wrapper on the ground. And I stop them, pick that up. Why, Mommy? Because wait till you find a trash can, put it in the trash can. Everybody else does it, and I swear it's like my grandmother coming out of my mouth. If everybody jumped off a bridge, would you jump too? No. Well, all right then, pick it up, you know. And so they bend over and they pick it up, and I see all the other mothers and the grandmothers kind of looking like, why are they making their kids pick up the trash, you know? I'm like, no, pune în gunoi. Nu pune pe stradă. Hai, du-te. You know, so maybe that way they kind of understand, oh, okay. And, you know, my youngest daughter, she's like, everybody else does it. Why can't we? I'm like, baby, you don't worry about what everybody else does. And people think Romania is ugly, and it's really not ugly because people throw the trash on the ground. But if everybody would just wait and put their trash in the trash can, it'd be much prettier, and more people would want to come. Oh, so I kind of explained it to her that way, and you know, it's true. Nobody wants to come visit a country where there's nothing but trash on the streets. So, you know, that's one thing, and I've noticed they're kind of getting better about that around here. There's more trash cans being put up, and I've noticed they have the Hi Romania, you know, make sure, you know, let's pick up all the litter. I think they had a day where they had the people go out and do that.
This summer, I think.
And so I think maybe it's kind of, you know, more in the news and things like that, so people are kind of responding to that and picking it up. And so I see things like that slowly starting to change here, which is good, and it kind of shows me and maybe other people, you know, Romanians, that things can change. It just takes a little while. It takes a little effort, but if you keep at it, you know, slow and steady wins the race. So, you know, maybe it's just litter that changes first, but maybe eventually, you know, more things, the bigger things, more important things can change too. You gotta start somewhere.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about a few of the things that you love about Romania.
Yes.
Are there any more things that you love?
The food. The food is good. Now, like I said, I miss steak and I miss cheesecake, but sarmale and salata de biof and chorba, and I didn't know chicken soup could have that sour taste, but it's really good. You know, put some borscht in there. It's awesome, especially when you're not feeling too good. And I've learned how to make all that. I can even make my mayonnaise by myself, so I'm very proud of that. I think the meat, I haven't tried to make meat on my own, and I don't really want to try because I'm scared I'll mess it up. And I've got a place, I find it, and it's good. We like it. So I think the wine here is really good. Everybody makes their own wine, and I love that. It's like a country full of winemakers, and you know, you can get you a big old 2-liter bottle of wine from, you know, Baba for 2 or 3 or 4 lei, you know, so, and it's good. And you take it home during the winter, boil it, put a little bit of cinnamon in it, and never knew you could boil wine. So, I probably sound like a raving drunk, and that's not the case, you know, just every once in a while. There's that, and there's the countryside. There's a lot of, I like how when you go into the villages here, even though there's technology and you can get the internet and cell phones and, you know, cool things, you can still go into the little satu, and they're still doing things the way they did 150 years ago. Using the same tools they used. And to me, that's really cool, and it's very important that has stayed around. Or like if you've been sick and you've been to the doctor and you've taken every medicine in the pharmacy and you've been to the hospital and they've milked you for all you're worth, but you're still sick. Go talk to Baba. She goes out in her garden and she breaks off a little twig, tells you, here, go home, make a tea. Drink it, or, you know, make a compress with it or something, and, you know, you're all better. It's those old wives' tales and the old remedies, they're here, and people still know how to do those things, and that doesn't happen. All that died a long time ago in Western countries. And so I'm hoping that, you know, our generation and our children's generation kind of keep those things going and keep that knowledge, because once you lose it, it's gone forever. And I like that. That's kind of cool.
Okay. So why don't you tell me what things you don't like?
Well, besides the invasion of personal space, I don't like that the politicians here make life harder than it needs to be for the people. Most of that comes from outside countries kind of flexing their muscle over Romania. From what I see, my personal opinion, I think Romania is a lot stronger than she knows she is. I think she has a lot more in her where she could be a major power player if the people that are in charge here would quit letting other people dictate to them what they can and cannot do in their own country.
Amen to that.
Romania has gold.
Yeah.
She has
Silver.
iron, silver, all these natural resources that she can't mine because she's had sanctions put on her by the EU. Oh, well, no, let us bring in our companies, and here, we'll give you a little slice. Yeah. Just be happy with that.
Don't forget about the biggest natural gas reserves.
Yes.
In Eastern Europe.
Yes.
And, of course, petroleum. And, of course, plenty of wind right here in Dobroja. I mean, they've started the biggest wind farm.
They've got wind farms. If you're coming in from Constanza into Tulcea, I mean, it's just all these huge fans, and most of them are, you know, they're not running all the time.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of things that Romania has that if the people running her would just stand up and say, you know what, keep your advice, keep your money. We're going to start it ourselves. We're going to go mine our gold. Hey, we create jobs for our people. And not only that, we have gold. We don't have to export it or sell it. So our money grows. If our money's growing, our economy's growing. Our people are working. They're spending more money, stimulating the economy. And now we can start extracting other resources that we have. Iron, steel, silver, oil, whatever. And before you know it, Romania is a major power player. And she can tell everybody, you know what? Kiss my grits. Pa. You know, that's something that just really irritates me, is how Romania just seems to be taken advantage of by other countries in Europe. And I'm just like, come on! You know, you kick the Ottomans out of here. So she's been able to withstand all this, and why isn't she doing it now? Where'd that inner strength go? People don't vote. You know, they have no confidence in their government, and that's sad. After being under a communist regime for so long and they finally got freedom, they can't really utilize it because they don't have confidence in it, because the same people that were running things when it was still communist, they're still in office. So there's still that old mentality, that old way of doing things. And the hospitals, the doctors, I think this is something you've touched on in your blog, is, you know, with the doctors, you go in to see the doctor and you got to pay them to see you. And, oh, well, now you need to come over here to this doctor and you got to pay him. And then you got to go pay the lab and bring your own lab samples. And please, you know, it's just, it's ridiculous. My mother-in-law, she had to have, I don't know if it was an ovarian or a uterine biopsy. The doctor told her she would have to have, you know, to pay to have the anesthesia, to have a biopsy done.
Yeah.
Okay, so we gave her the money so she could have the anesthesia. They gave her the anesthesia. It wasn't enough. She's on the table. She can feel it. She tells the doctor, I can feel it. She's crying. He tells her, I don't care. If you move, I will get up and leave you here and you can go home. So she laid there in pain, crying, while he performs the biopsy and then sends her home. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I was like, you know, she's like, chase the fuck.
They'd have shot that doctor in the States. I'd have shot him.
Exactly.
I'd have shot him.
I contacted the World Health Organization. Was like, can you people do something? Because this is ridiculous.
No, they don't give a crap.
No.
Sorry.
My daughter, my oldest daughter, she had, what was it, year before last? She had some stomach pain, so I think she was just trying to get out of class. So they sent her to the nurse's office at the school, and the nurse sent a note home saying she thought it might be acute appendicitis. Okay, so of course I freaked because you don't want to play around with that.
Yeah.
So I take her to the hospital, and my mother-in-law came with me, and because my Romanian's still very limited, and they bring a doctor in to examine her, and he spoke English, and he, you know, I come in there and he's like, you're American? I said, yes. He was like, okay, I'm Armenian. We don't let our country's politics get in the way. I was like, no, of course not. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't even know what my country's politics is with your country, you know, and who cares anyway, you know? Yeah. Of course my daughter was fine. And then afterwards he gives me, you know, his card, and there was his number on it and said, if there's any problems, you know, call me. And I was like, oh, that was nice. And by the way, I'm a plastic surgeon. Okay. And the first thing went through my head is, why was a plastic surgeon examining my child for appendicitis? It's kind of completely different. And then the second thought that went through my head is, Tulcha has a plastic surgeon? It's things like that, just kind of, there's no rhyme or reason or common sense, and it's backwards and it's crooked. Like I said, there's that, it's a catch-22 with the, you know, the corruption, you know, but nothing, and things like that with trying to change things for the better as far as legislation goes, or even with the hospitals. No matter how much you bribe, nothing changes, nothing goes right. It's still kind of, the average person still winds up getting screwed. And, you know, it's hard when you see people who are living on a pension. They've got to make a choice as to whether they're going to pay their light bill, their water bill, or they're going to buy food. But hey, I need to go pay this doctor about half of what I've got just so he can tell me, oh, I don't know what's wrong with you, you need to go see this guy. I'd like to see people get in office who've actually lived outside of Romania for a little while and who've seen how things work outside of the country and how it can work better here, that they have ideas and they've got the best interest of the people at heart. And it's, you know, probably a pipe dream on my part, but it would be nice to see that. It would be nice to see the people here. Yeah,
well, say one or two of those people get into power, then they have to fight against 400 or 500 others who love the status quo.
Yes, this
and
is
I
true.
don't know if anybody wants to destroy their life and go to an early grave trying to fight a system like this one.
This is true, but I think that's the thing that just irritates me the most, is to see how Romania just kind of gets, excuse the expression, raped by, you know, larger, more powerful countries, and the elected officials just sit there and take it. And it's not really them being raped, it's the average person.
Well, they profit from these things.
Yes, they profit from it. And it's like, you know what? At least give the people a tube of KY and make it a little bit easier on them. You know? And you've got people leaving the country in droves because there's no work here. Or what work they do find, it doesn't cover their monthly living expenses. You know, they can't pay their mortgage and put gas in their car and buy food and buy school supplies and clothes for the growing kids. There's just, it's not enough. You have to go work outside the country, and, you know, the people are in power in Bucharest are sitting there scratching their heads trying to figure out, why is everybody leaving? But you don't care because you're getting your kickback from whoever, you know, for doing this or that or not doing this or that. And well, another thing that irritates me here is, and this is going to sound, maybe it sounds wrong, and I'm not trying to knock any one church here, but it irritates me that I see the church here, the Orthodox Church, take advantage of people. They come around to the houses at Christmas and New Year to bless the house. Mm-hmm. We had one of the priests came and he knocked on my door, and I opened it and he said something. I don't know what he said, and I was like, nu vorbește românește foarte bine. And he was like, what's this? You know, and he did the little blessing, and, you know, I had to kiss the little icon or whatever it was, and the kids kissed it, and I was like, okay, mulțumesc, you know, and I shut the door. This was at Christmas. He came back at New Year. He comes back at New Year to do the same thing, and it was the same guy, and he was like, and he didn't do it again. And I found out later, you're supposed to pay them.
Yeah.
And I'm going, you're kidding, right? No, I was like, oh, well, that's why he didn't want to do it again, because he wasn't going to get nothing out of me.
No blessing for you.
Exactly. And, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, you're getting money from the state, you don't pay taxes, and if somebody wants to baptize their baby, they got to pay you. If they want to get married, they got to pay you. Somebody dies, they got to pay you. And then to come give a blessing, they got to pay you again.
It's pretty good living.
What was it that Christ said? When you go into a city, take nothing with you. Take nothing from them. If they give you a place to stay and, you know, they accept you, let your peace be upon them. Let your blessing be upon them. If not, shake the dust off your feet and keep going. So where's the message of love in what you're doing? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm just seeing greed. And you drive through a little village and all the houses are falling apart, but dang if they just didn't build a $200,000 church. Wait a minute, Christ told you to help the widows and the orphans. So where are you helping widows and orphans? It kind of baffles my mind that these are priests, they're supposed to be men of God, and they're doing just as bad as the government and kind of taking advantage of people. It's really sad, and kind of that makes me angry on a spiritual level, I guess you would say, just because, you know, I've read the Bible from cover to cover, and what they're doing, and other, you know, pastors and reverends and whatever things that they're doing, it's not what Christ said, and it's just it's disheartening, and it just makes me sick to my stomach, basically.
Now comes the fun segment.
Okay.
Where we talk about interesting stories.
Okay.
You've already mentioned a few.
Okay.
But if you can recall any other ones that you think are interesting.
Learning the language has been very interesting. And there's some words that in Romanian sound like bad words in English, and some words in English that sound bad in Romanian. And one of those words is foot. And of course in Romanian it means something, you know, kind of bad. So me and my kids are walking, and we're in Piazza Noa, and it's the market here, and as you're coming into the market, they've got little benches, and in the mornings there's all the old ladies and old men sitting there, and they're gossiping and, you know, playing backgammon or chess or whatever. And I was walking with the kids, and my son kind of stumbled or something, and he stubbed his foot. He's like, "Ow, Mommy, my foot." I was like, "Oh, baby, what'd you do to your foot?" And all the old women were looking at me crazy. And I was like, it must just be because, you know, we're speaking another language. And so I was, you know, just happened to be telling Maurice about it, and he laughed at me. He's like, "No, baby, that foot means something else here." I was like, "Oh, that explains the faces." Okay. I have a favorite word in Romanian, smontana. I don't know why, but for some reason it just sounds like a battle cry. Like I can picture men in kilts and battle axes with, the war paint on their face just running, smontana. I don't know, it sounds so masculine. And I know it's probably a feminine word in Romanian because it ends with But yeah, my parents came to visit, and like I said, my kids, they picked up the language within like 2 months max. I mean, fully fluent, conversational, blah, 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 blah. And so my parents came, and I had to explain to them, okay, if you hear the kids saying, yo, fuck Aceasta, they're not saying a bad word. They're saying, I do, or do it, yo, fuck, I do. Okay. And I would still see my parents kind of, when they'd hear the kids, yo, fuck, do fuck, and they're fighting back and forth about who needs to do it, and no, you go do it, and this, that, and the other. And then too, the kids would, Marius had left for Italy, and I really picked up more of the language after he left, because with him here, it was just, you knew that he was going to translate for me, and so I didn't really try to learn it, and that's wrong on my part. But the kids, they knew I couldn't speak Romanian, and so the girls would be sitting on the couch and then all of a sudden they'd take off in the room, and about 5 minutes later, boom, I'd hear something. Okay, so what they were doing, they were sitting there plotting what they were going to do, what they shouldn't be doing, or talking, because mom don't understand. Ha 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 ha. Well, I started picking up more and more. So they were sitting there one day, and I'm in Celeste. Ce? Am înțeles, nu faci așa. Hai, du-te în camp. Oh crap, mom understands now. So kind of, that's one thing. Another thing with when we first got here and the kids were kind of learning. My son was 18 months old, and so he was potty training, and we had the pull-ups, and I told Marius we need to find more pull-ups, and he was like, don't say that word. It's like, what? He's like, because it sounds like something else in Romanian, and it's not very nice. I was like, okay. Well, my youngest daughter, precocious, she overheard that. So we're walking on the Paleza, and she runs ahead of us, and she yells at the top of her lungs, pull up! And there was a woman standing right in front of the door to the captain of the port's office. And she kind of had her back to us, and Isabel yelled out at her. She just turned around and looked, and Morris was like, Isabel! I was like, oh my God. And she knew. She didn't know what it meant in Romanian, but she knew it was bad, and it wasn't nice, and the shock value of it all. And it was like, oh, why? I didn't mean it. And so there was that. I'm trying to think. There was something else. Just the whole language thing has been an experience. The grammar's been hard for me, and the masculine and the feminine, we don't really have masculine and feminine ways of saying things in English. We kind of assign his or her, or like a car or a boat is generally considered, they're giving girly names, so they're feminine for whatever reason. So that's been hard, and like the tinsel, trecut, prezent, viitor, I don't know how the words change, and I'm sure it's the same for anybody learning English. They're trying to figure out, okay, the past, like walk is present, will walk is future, walked is past, walking is present, so the words change, and I haven't quite figured that out yet.
There are more tenses in Romanian than in English.
Yeah, it's nice though when you run into people here. The people here are very nice. That was another thing. When they see that you're trying to learn the language, they figure out what you're trying to say, and they kind of help you, and they talk easier. I explained to them, nu vorbește românește foarte bine. Dacă tu poți să vorbești încet și ușor, am înțeles mai mult.
Hey, she was all right.
They're like, bine. and a kilogram, and trying to figure out the metric system. I didn't figure out the grams, and I'm like, I don't know how many grams, just give me a kilo. I knew sumate and 1 kilo, 2 kilos, so I would either get a half or a whole, and that was it. They've been very nice and easy about that. So there's certain stores and vendors I'll go to, I might pay a little bit more, but they don't look at me crazy, and they kind of help me, and it works out well. I got a weird story. I saw my first dead body floating in the water here. We went Merjamin Padore over here on the river. And we were out there, and lots of people, it's summer, everybody's barbecuing, and we all of a sudden everybody's like running to the water. And I was like, so we go over there and ask Marius, what is it? And he's like, I don't know. And we look, and there's this man face down floating down. I was like, the first thing that went through my head besides, oh my God, was after that was like, that looks nothing like they make it look on CSI New York. It was just, oh my God, there's dead. I'm trying to cover the kids' eyes. Let's go back over here. I didn't want them freaked out. And not every day.
Did you find out what happened to the guy?
The guy had been out there. He'd been missing for about 2 weeks. He had gone out fishing and decided to go for a swim, and he got caught by one of the currents, which is my husband's father. Same thing. He was out on a boat. He went fishing, decided, swim a little bit, and he got caught by undercurrent. And
they're very dangerous here.
Yes, and one of the women we were with, her husband had died the same way.
Yeah. So
it was kind of hard on her. It was, and so they called the cops, and don't get the body out of the water. Just don't touch it, till they could come. And so somebody had a boat, and they just kind of stayed around the body. And somebody that was out there had said that they were out there the weekend before, and they thought they saw something, like the body had popped up but got drugged right back down. And Marius has talked about when the kids get older, he'll take them swimming. I'm like, you ain't taking my kids in that river. You crazy. I'll beat you with a stick.
So I'm kind of curious about your first name. It's Odessa, which is a Russian name. It's the name of a Russian city anyway.
Yes.
Or is it? It's not Russian, it's Georgian or Ukrainian city? What is
it's a Ukrainian city, which used to be part of Russia. Actually, my mother-in-law, when Marius called her and told her, I'm getting married, and her name's Odessa. Oh, she's Russian? And I get that a lot here. They think I'm Russian. I'm like, no, I'm not Russian. It's, oddly enough, from Nazi Germany. God, that sounds awful. But there was a book written by Frederick Forsyth called The Odessa File, and it was made into a movie back in the 70s with John Voight. My dad happened to be stationed in Germany back in the 70s, and he saw the movie while he was there, and he just thought it sounded pretty, and if I ever have a little girl, I'm going to name her Odessa. Okay.
There you go.
Fair enough. I read the book, and I could have killed him after that. It's like, you name me for that? So, it was supposed to be, the Odessa was the organization there, something, something, something. I'm not sure if it really existed or not, but basically the organization that hid out the Nazi officers after everything went. So, but, I hated it as a kid. I told my middle name is Renee, and I came home one day, I think I was about 5 or 6, and I told my family, I don't want to be called Odessa anymore. I want to be called Renee. And my aunt just looked at me, okay, Odessa Renee. And to this day, she still calls me Odessa Renee. I never got to ditch Odessa. But it worked out well as I got older, There's not many Odessas, so if I heard Odessa yelled out, I knew it was for me. Okay, yeah, hey, I'm here. So, and I actually do want to go see Odessa. I think it's about 60 kilometers. I think I'm directionally challenged.
Up the shoreline, yeah, close enough.
So I just want to go and, basically take a picture by the sign in Cyrillic and English. It says, welcome to Odessa, and maybe steal it and bring it home and hang it up. So, and there's a city in Texas called Odessa. I believe there's even in Odessa, Florida. But when I lived in Houston, I would get, you got a sister named Amarillo? Just like, oh, jeez. That joke got so old so fast.
Do you have any advice for compatriots, Americans who want to visit Romania or who want to move here?
Definitely come visit, especially if you're very much of a nature lover. There's a lot of very wide open space here out in the country, very beautiful, untouched. I haven't been able to see as much of the country as I'd like, but the beaches are pretty around Constanța, and in Bucharest they've got some better architectural buildings. They're not so Sovietic and cold like the Opera House and the Arc de Triomphe. There's things like that you can see, and even in some of the old, if you drive down the streets where the revolution took place, you can still see the bullet holes in the buildings, and it's kind of a surreal. You're looking at something that recently happened, and the gravity of it kind of it gets you. I want to see Brasov. That's supposed to be very pretty, and I understand where you're from. It's also very pretty around there too, and Mediaș and Cluj.
Sighișoara, Sibiu.
Da. It's the people here are great. The food is wonderful. You'll put on a couple pounds, but it'll be well worth it. Make sure you eat you some gogoshar and sarmale and the meat, and just eat everything, and don't worry about it. You can get on the treadmill when you get home. Living here, if I don't care where you're from, if you're from America or UK or Germany or France or anywhere, as far as picking up and moving to another country where the language is different and there's a cultural difference, it depends on the person. If you're a person that's always, when you see something, all you see is the bad and the negative, that's all you're ever going to see. There's good things and bad things to moving anywhere. You could move to a wealthier European country, besides Romania. But if all you can see is what's different and what's not as good as what you're used to, then stay your butt at home. Just stay there. But if you can kind of roll with the tide and make the most of it, it'll work out great. You'll love the people here. Life moves slower and it's easier. So just, you come with an open mind and an open heart and just kind of go with it. When you face an obstacle, you don't let it beat you down. You get you a bigger stick and you beat it down and just keep going. I think more people should come here and see Romania for what it is, which is a very beautiful place, a very beautiful country with very nice people who will open their door to you, invite you in, make you sit down, and serve you every piece of food they have in their house, and then go buy more and cook it for you, just to make sure that you're happy and content. That's just the way that people are here. And I think if everybody in the world was like that, we wouldn't have to worry about bombs or anything else. We'd just all sit around making wine and drinking it, and pace. Come to Romania. Come see it. Come see the mountain with the Sphinx. And Bran Castle and Pelish Castle and the beaches in Constanța and the Transylvanian mountains, and come to the Delta. There's not a whole lot going on here in Tulcea. We're not hip or happening, but there's the largest reserve of birds, wildlife in all of Europe, so I've lived by major rivers my whole life. I grew up on the banks of the Mississippi, and now I'm going to spend the rest of my life on the banks of the Danube, which is cool, because I remember listening to Strauss's, Tales from the Vienna Woods and the Waltz on the Blue Danube, and as a girl, and especially a little girl, you're just picturing some princess in a big fluttery dress and the handsome prince with his coattails and just waltzing down the Danube. And I always wanted to see it, and here I am living on it. So kind of living a dream, in a sense. So that's it.
Good. Well, thank you, Odessa.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.